This is Into the Story, the podcast where you learn English with true stories from all over the world. Stories that connect us and inspire you to get where you want to go. Hello there, it's your host Bree, and welcome to the podcast. To be bold. Being bold is that spark inside us that makes us say yes to big opportunities, even when we're not completely sure we're ready. In your career, maybe you felt it before, that moment when you see a chance to grow, to challenge yourself, or to step into something bigger. Applying for that promotion or taking a project that feels just a little beyond your current skills. Today, we're going into the story of Stephen Devincenzi. When he was 18 years old, he moved to Barcelona and got a job in a fancy restaurant. He thought he was ready, but soon he discovered that it was much more difficult than he imagined.
No. Más fino, thinner. And so he walks off again, and, here I am, sweating, heart pounding, thinking, I can do it thinner, or I can do it faster. But I can't do both.
By the end of this episode, you'll learn an important lesson. Boldness is great, but sometimes we also need to be realistic. Trust me, if you've ever felt in over your head at work, this one is for you. The doors are now closed to my Master Public Speaking and English course, but if you want to speak English with impact and influence, lead meetings, sell, and give presentations, join my free newsletter for practical tips to help you speak with confidence and open new opportunities. You can sign up at intothestorypodcast.com. Okay, and now it's time to look at 5 words and expressions that Stephen uses in his story today. The first is soft-spoken, and this adjective describes someone who speaks gently and quietly. For example, she's soft-spoken but persuasive, or his soft-spoken voice made everyone feel at ease. To be soft-spoken. And the next one, I had to put it because it's actually the first time I've ever heard this word. It is BLAG, B-L-A-G. And this is a slang word from the UK, and it means to successfully get something by being persuasive or charming, or maybe even tricking someone. So, for example, he blagged his way into the exclusive party, or she blagged free concert tickets by talking to the manager. Then we have the phrasal verb to own up to something. And when you own up to something, you admit that you did something wrong. For example, she owned up to forgetting their anniversary, or he finally owned up to breaking the vase. Next, WONKY, W-O-N-K-Y. And wonky is something that is crooked or shaky or just doesn't really work properly. For example, the table has a wonky leg and wobbles when you eat. We've all had that situation at a restaurant when a table has a wonky leg. Or my phone is acting wonky. It keeps freezing. To be wonky. And finally, to be firm or decisive. And this is someone who is strong, confident, and makes decisions quickly. For example, you need to be firm when setting rules with children, or his decisive actions saved the company. To be firm or decisive. As always, if you would like to get a free learning pack for this episode, visit intothestorypodcast.com. All right, let's get into the story.
I'm in this kitchen of maybe 5 meters by 10 meters. There's about 8 chefs in there, all doing different things. Some people are cooking, some people are preparing bread or vegetables, something like that. And I am chopping leeks. I'm not just chopping them, I am turning them practically translucent by trying to make them as thin as I possibly can. I've got Spanish flying past me. My Spanish is pretty good, but not quite good enough for the level which is needed for this kitchen. And the head chef walks over to me. He's a soft-spoken but firm man, and he looks down at what I'm doing at my leeks and looks up at me and just says, "Más rápido," faster. And I'm thinking, okay, I can do it a bit faster, I suppose. I'll try anyway. So he walks off, and there we go. I'm trying to do it faster and faster as much as I can. And for each one of these leeks, I've got to chop it into 3 sideways, turn them lengthways, and then chop them as fine as possible so that they're practically like hair. And anyway, I'm going on, maybe another 20 minutes pass or something, and the head chef comes back again, and he looks at what I'm doing, and this time he says, no, más fino, thinner. And so he walks off again, and, here I am, sweating, heart pounding, thinking, geez, I can do it thinner, or I can do it faster, but I can't do both.
Stephen is in way over his head. He is 19 years old and has somehow gotten a job in a very fancy, high-end restaurant in Barcelona. But the journey to this kitchen actually started back in his small town in the south of England.
I started working in a pub when I was 13. My sisters were already working there, my older sisters. All 3 of them had worked in this pub at some point. And one day the boss said, "Do you know anyone who can start washing up?" And they said, "Oh, maybe our little brother can do that." And I did. I went along at 13. If you're wondering whether that's illegal, it's not illegal. Actually, from 13 in the UK, you can start having a part-time job. And I stayed there for 5 years. I was working there, first of all, washing up, and then I started doing some other tasks around the kitchen. And then by the time I was 18, I was doing practically everything. I was doing all the food. And I'd really mastered the Sunday roasts.
By 18, Stephen feels confident, like he really knows his way around a kitchen. That means he knows how the kitchen works. He knows how to cook well, to handle pressure. After finishing school, he travels with a friend through Eastern Europe with no return ticket. They visit Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, until they finally run out of money. Back in England, unsure of what to do next, Stephen remembers a time he enjoyed, an exchange trip that he had done in high school to Barcelona.
And I just loved it in Barcelona. I thought, I'm just going to go back there. Maybe I can get a job. I can work in a kitchen, improve my Spanish at the same time. And I was so confident at that time. I thought, yeah, this will work. I started walking around Barcelona with my CV that I'd just made in an internet cafe. And I would just went into pretty much any place that made food that I could find. So, yeah, small restaurants, bars, and also some fancy restaurants. And one of the places that actually messaged me back was this Pincho restaurant. If anybody doesn't know, pinchos are these really small tapas from the Basque country. A pincho is made of a piece of bread with something on top. And they're pretty small, and they all have a stick in them. And at the end, once you're finished, the waiter just counts the number of sticks you have, and that's how much you pay. But this pincho restaurant that I was given an interview for was definitely a really high-end place. posh, let's say. And somehow I blagged my way through this interview process and started working there and was given 2 weeks trial period.
So you have to picture Stephen, just 19. He walks into this hot, busy kitchen in Barcelona. The air is thick with heat. The chefs are moving fast. They're chopping, cooking, shouting orders. Stephen's heart is racing, but he's ready. His first task? Slicing baguette.
One of the problems I had is that with these pinchos, they all are on a slice of baguette, right? And slicing baguette is easy enough, right? Anybody can slice baguette. But for making these pinchos, you have to make the baguette exactly the right size. And every time I was cutting it, it was either a millimeter too thin or a millimeter too thick. And the more that you think about it, the harder it becomes. So you could say that my problems literally started at the base from me not being able to get the base of the pincho right.
He works late, trying to prove himself. And that night, he returns to his small flat, shared with a few Italians, and collapses into bed, completely exhausted. The next day comes too soon. Back in the kitchen, a new challenge: preparing fish. This is his chance to get things right.
I was preparing this fish called boniato, which is really similar to tuna. It's from the same family as tuna, but it's, well, a little bit different, normally a little bit more expensive. And I was preparing a mixture of boniato, but the kitchen also used tuna. And after preparing this mixture of boniato, I realized that I wasn't actually sure that I put it in the right place. And I couldn't remember whether it was tuna or boniato in this particular tub. And I just thought, wow, there's nothing I can do now. I can either own up, I can say I can't remember which one's which, or I can just leave it. And I just left it. And then a few hours later, one of the other chefs said, "Hey, has someone mixed up the tuna with the boniato?" And nobody said anything, but everyone knew it was me.
If you are a Spanish speaker, yes, Stephen means bonito, not buñato, but those are super easy words to mix, almost as easy as mixing tuna and bonito. By now, Stephen's confidence is cracking. Another long night, another exhausted walk home. He collapses into bed, only to wake up and do it all again. Back in the kitchen, a new challenge waits: a simple delivery run.
I was told to go and pick up some ingredients from another restaurant, which was from the same family of restaurants. And I was given this trolley and told to go and fetch them. So I went down the street, went to the restaurant, and of course everything I'm being told that you've just got to do it as fast as you possibly can. And of course everything goes wrong when you do things as fast as you possibly can. I've put things in the trolley, but the trolley is too small. Like, I'm collecting loads of these packets of different things. And then I've gone back into the street in Barcelona. There's people walking around, businessmen going by, tourists taking photos of things. And then there's me with this trolley with wonky wheels. So I'm like going on all different directions. And then there's ingredients falling out of this trolley. Some of them are getting damaged on the way. It's completely, what an awful situation. And then by the time I actually get back to my kitchen, the head chef just looks at some of these packets. First of all, he says, "Where have you been? You've taken ages." And then he looks at some of the packages and they're like a bit broken or destroyed. He takes one of them and just throws it in the bin. And he's just shaking his head. After I'd been there for a couple of weeks, the days all started to blur into each other. I was so tired from working there all the time that on the, I think, 2 days off I had during those 2 weeks, I just slept the whole time anyway, and like washed my dirty chef's whites and things like that, just prepared for the next day. Um, so I think I didn't even realize that I'd been there for 2 weeks. And after another long and difficult day in the kitchen, where I probably messed up many times, um, I calmed down a little bit and I was sweeping up in the kitchen at midnight. And the head chef just said, "Stephen, can you come into my office?" And he actually looked quite sad because even though he was quite a firm, decisive guy who shouted orders at everybody, he was also a really nice guy. And he looked quite sad when he said, "I'm sorry, but we're not going to give you the contract." And I had a kind of sinking feeling, but also I wasn't surprised. And I said to him, "That's okay. I know that I'm not at the same level as everybody else here." And that was it. And then walked out, took a really long, slow walk to the changing rooms, and saw some of the other chefs on the way, and they all knew what had just happened, and they kind of consoled me a bit and were like, sorry. One guy said, "Hasta siempre," which is like, "see you always," which I thought was quite nice, even though I was obviously never going to see him again. But yeah, it was difficult, but also I think I needed that hit of realism.
He leaves the restaurant for the last time. The streets of Barcelona feel quieter, like even the city knows he's just lost his job. It's a long walk home. Back at his flat, he shares the news with his housemates, and then he decides it's a good time to visit home. The following week, he flies to England to visit his family and celebrate his birthday.
And then something really weird happened, which is that I tried to go back to Barcelona twice. My dad actually drove me to the airport twice, but for two different reasons. Once because the French air traffic control was on strike, and once because it was snowing. I literally couldn't fly. My flight was cancelled both times. And after the second time that my flight was cancelled, I went back to my parents' house and I saw that I'd got an email from a job in France working with children in this center, a job that I'd applied for months before. And then I had an interview with them the next day, and then they offered me a job. So I ended up abandoning all of my stuff in Barcelona and going to France instead. But I'd say, really, what I learned from this quite quickly, I think. I think I realized this quite soon after the experience, was just that having confidence is really good. It's a great thing to be confident, but you also have to be realistic.
The next several years of Stephen's life were full of bold moves. After France, he began traveling the world. During a stay in Australia, his confidence pushed him to do whatever it took to make money to keep his travels going. At one point, he was working 4 jobs at the same time. He worked as a private chef for a family, a teaching assistant in a school, a cafe worker, and in a Mexican restaurant. It wasn't easy, but his confidence kept him going. I really believe that being bold is something many of us, myself included, could use more of. But it's not just about confidence. It's also about staying flexible. So be brave, take risks, but don't hold on too tightly to what you think should happen. Sometimes unexpected challenges teach us the best lessons and lead to better opportunities. Today, Stephen is a podcaster and former teacher. He is the founder and main host of the Simple English News Daily podcast, a 7-minute daily news show designed for English learners. You can listen at send7.org or search Simple English News Daily wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope that you enjoyed this story and found it inspiring. Be sure to follow Into the Story wherever you listen to podcasts so that you never miss a new episode. If you want to speak English with impact and influence, join my free newsletter for practical tips. Sign up at intothestorypodcast.com, where you'll also find free learning packs for each story. That's all for today, folks. Until the next time, I hope that you have a good time, or at least a good story to tell.